that was an intense one. This little guy, you don't like the thunder?
No.
You want to say hi to the people? No, because you don't like the thunder. There's lightning and there's thunder. Is it scary?
Go on a bite.
You want to go in the potty? I am going to start with Every Given Day. This was an arc. This book doesn't even come out till September 8th, but I've had it for like 2 months from NetGalley to review, and I'm really glad that I chose it because it was one of the best reads I've had all year. It was excellent. I gave this 5 stars, which I know is rare, but I'm so glad that now I finally have 5 books that I've given 5 stars to. I have not heard of anyone talking about this book yet, and so when I put up my review, I started to see people putting it for their to-read list, and I was like, yes. I don't know why no one's talked about this. This is probably, I guess, by the description, they're not interested in it. It doesn't really have a romance. It's more about family. There are 3 parts to this book, so it's like watching a movie. It might feel a little bit slow to some people, but I didn't feel that way for once. I felt like I was learning about the characters and they were growing, and just really loved the flow of it. It was very nice and refreshing. And this is a great book to read pretty much all year round because there are parts throughout all the seasons, but I feel like this the most should be a summary book. So this is great that I read this in the summer, but it will be out in the late summer. The main character in this, her name is Gwen. She's a teacher. Her father has just passed away. She now owns his house. Her mother died when she was young from, I believe, tuberculosis, but I could be wrong. Gwen receives word that her sister is sick and that she needs her help because her sister Marion has 2 children and the father is always away on business, and so she really wants her to maybe teach her children because they're pretty young and she knows that she's capable. The only problem that Gwen has is that Marion, the 2 of them have not talked in several years, and the reason is because of Marion's husband. It used to be Gwen's beau. But what I love about this again is that there is no flowing romance in this book. It is very much Gwen starts to just focus on helping her sister and the children. That's all she wants. So I really liked that. So in the first part, she goes to visit her sister. So we get to know the characters. We know the housemaid, who at first takes a while to get to know Gwen, doesn't really trust her. And then the children, there's a boy and a girl. They're very bubbly. They're young. They're cute. They're sweet. And then the second part is when the Spanish flu happened. So yes, this is set in the late 19-teens and going into the 1920s. And the book does end in 1935. This might be the worst part of the whole book. We learn very much what that looked like in that time, how it destroyed so many of the people, what the doctors went through, so many things. It was really intense, but I really enjoyed how that went about. And then the last part goes into more about the story with the nephew who has an illness from the Spanish flu that a lot of people got afterwards, and just the fight that Gwen has to try to care for him. There's so much faith throughout this book. That's what I really love the most about this, the faith. It's outpouring. There are characters who have a strong faith in God, and Gwen is struggling because she never really had that relationship, and so when she sees these other people who are depending on God, she doesn't really know who to depend on, and she asks questions. She asks God questions. She reads the Bible, so we get scriptures in this, and it was so beautifully done. So I absolutely recommend this. This is a great historical fiction Christian book. A lot of the people in this were real people that existed. Looming around would be the one guy's business. You hear about like what he's involved in. That nephew, I love the nephew in this so much. Another thing I really liked is that there was a part where they go on a vacation in New Jersey that I've been to, and so I was like, oh man, this makes me want to go to the beach. I want to go visit. It was just so lovely, and I was like, I need to go. And I even said to my husband, we should go. Anyway, we didn't go. So for content, there is death. There's child death because of the Spanish flu. Like I said, you hear about all sorts of things. There are even descriptions about certain children and how they die. So that might be a little heavy for some people. Believe me, I sobbed after. I have not cried in a while. I think the last book that I sobbed with was in January. So the fact that after this book, crying, and I was sniffling, and my husband's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, it was just really good. It was beautiful. Oh man. So there is some slight violence in this book as well, how illnesses can affect people and their health. And there's some lies and deceit, but so good. I really loved it. And if you guys read it and you end up not liking it, that is okay. Everyone has their own taste. But if you end up loving this book, if you read this in September or later and you end up loving this book, please let me know your thoughts on it because I have not seen anyone review it yet that I know. So I would love to see someone else telling me what they think about it. And for the Ketchup-a-thon, I put this book as a side. This is family focused, so this was ice cream for the sides. Put that ice cream on top of your pie. To take a different avenue, going to that summer slasher readathon I'm doing, there was one that said skull on the cover. And while this is not typically a skull, it is like a wolf mask that is of like a skull of a wolf. So I was like, I think it could work, but I don't know if this would work. But this is what I chose. Lonely Castle in the Mirror. This is a very unique and interesting book. I had been wanting to read this for a while. I had heard good things about it. It is a Japanese story. It is magical realism. Throughout my reading of it, I wanted to know more about the characters because this is really focusing in on a group of children between 14 and 15 years old, and they get summoned to go through a mirror. Each of them have a mirror, and it brings them to this castle. And there are a set of rules that they are given by a girl with a wolf mask, and she explains how long they are allowed to take to find a special key. And with that key, they can make any wish that they want. So these kids, they start to get to know one another. And then there is something that happens where we get even more stories about each of them. And I love it. This is not a book for kids because there is a sexual assault, but the sexual assault is like not described at all, but you know that this is something that occurs on a regular basis. There are two uses of the D word. There is the small B word, and there are two misuses of the word hell. There's also some bullying, and there is talk about an ill child at one point who passed away. So this book is actually pretty sad. Like, it's fun, but then it gets pretty dark and sad. And it's definitely about bullying and how children are treated. What I really like is that this brings a bunch of children together so they get to learn about one another. And they form a friendship and bond, but then they're also struggling with this idea of a wish. And then there's something a little bit more that they find out. This is a really good book about friendship, but it's really sad too. In Passport to Summer Reading, there was the prompt of flowers. And I thought D is for Daisy would be perfect for that. She is holding a bunch of flowers. Her name is Daisy, and there are flowers in the background. So pretty. So D is for Daisy. This is the fourth book in a series. The stories for the first three books are very different from this. You do see like a glimpse at the very end of this of like one of the characters from those three stories. This is a new set of stories that will be happening. So in this one, Daisy, she really wanted to buy this one farm that is next door, but this old couple just moved in there and they don't really know much about farming, and they hire a guy to work the farm who is their son's best friend. And that guy's name is Kyle. And again, I don't know what's with my finding these books that have deaf representation in them, but Kyle's sister is deaf and she is in here. So you just learn a little bit about that. She's not a really focused on character, but she definitely has an interesting story. Daisy has never had a bow. She's been wanting one. She's getting a little bit up there in age and she thinks it will never happen to her. So she was really let down about this farm. But then there's something that happens and she meets Kyle, and the two of them form a really nice friendship. It is very cute, but there is someone that had bullied Daisy at one point named Winter, and Winter, she's a little problematic. Kyle starts to get a little bit smitten with Winter. So this story, it was really a well-told story, actually. I had fun with this one. Yeah, I got frustrated at times, but overall, it was very nice. I liked it. It was wholesome and sweet. I loved all the farming stuff. They like talk to animals, like a bunch of the characters, they just start talking to this cow on a regular basis. It's really cute. Like the cow is their therapist. It's funny to me. So for content in this, there's just teasing and bullying, and there's some injuries talked about. I thought I read this book, but I guess I didn't. I was getting ready to read the fourth one. I was like, wait, I didn't read the third one? Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Hill. This is the third book in the Betsy Tacy series, and I thought this was the best one so far. I mean, I've only read 3 now, but it was really sweet, and I loved the fact that Betsy and Tacy and Tib, their best friend, the 3 of them, they are now 10. It's a big deal. They're all excited to be double digits, and they're still going on their hill. And then they meet this girl who is, as they say, Syrian, but you find out later that really she's Lebanese, but Lebanon was a part of Syria when this book was written. The area where she's from is Lebanon. That's its own country now. Anyway, but I love the fact that the 3 of them are starting to learn a little bit more about the culture while they're also enjoying the American culture because it's set around July 4th. But what is really great is that this book is pretty much teaching you to love your neighbor as yourself. It's saying to stand up for those who are here that are different from you and trying to just learn about them without having these reservations and just saying, well, they must be this way because they weren't here already. And I had fun reading it. It's short and it's sweet. So if you want to read this series, that is definitely a really nice story. For my summertime bingo, I have Bicycle on the cover. This was the book that really led me to do this because I get these books every single year. This is the third book in the series, and every summer in a row, I have read this book as it comes out. So, A Cyclist's Guide to Poppies and Predicaments. Okay, so there were parts of this book that I loved more than the other books, but then there were some things in here that I was like, I wish that wasn't in here. Overall, it's a cozy mystery. It is very clean. There's no swearing in this series. There's no sex in this series. And I really like the main character, Sadie. Now, in the book series, Sadie, she has her own bicycle tour company in France. And in this one, she's in Provence, which is really nice. What I love about these books is that while we're on her tour, we start to learn about the places that they visit, and there are different spots where they stay, and she gives facts about them. And I think that's really fun because I feel like I'm on the tour with them. And I love cycling, so I would love to go cycling in France. That would be so amazing. So this story being a mystery, there's always something that happens with her tours. So she's already witnessed murders from the other books, and she has a friend who is named Laurent. He is a cop, and so they're a bit of a team. And for this book, they each have a bachelor or a bachelorette party that they are doing. He's writing around a guy that he is the best man for in his wedding. He was raving about Sadie, so she has the bachelorette party. And we learn about the characters that she has to deal with. The bride-to-be, she's a humdinger of a lady. She is a little bit wild where she's like, oh, it's my bachelorette party, let's do this. So there is one thing that I did not like in this book very much at all, and that is the fact that she is flirtatious when she's gonna get married, and she wants to do like a strip poker while cycling. And Sadie is like, I don't want to do that. No, we're not doing that. But she goes against her, and she paid for her tour and she's not listening, and she's warned, but there are consequences to the action. And it's interesting because there's even a church scene around that. So I loved actually how that worked out. So they're not making it seem like it's a good thing. Yes, she flirts with someone who is not her husband-to-be, and that causes problems as well. So she's a little bit wild, and Sadie is trying to like stay out of everything, but there's something that happens where someone is murdered. And now Sadie is like, well, here I go on another adventure of trying to figure out who murdered this person. She's very good at figuring out things and just being observant. And Laurent really likes that about her too. The fact that while he's a cop, he's able to trust in her instincts, which I really love, because in the first book, they were like kind of butting heads. He just trusts her so much now. And I just love that. So it is great to see the development over time. And it is a really cute ending. One thing that is strange is there is a magpie that's in this story, but you get the perspective of the magpie in the introduction and the epilogue, and it was very unique and different for these books. I thought that was kind of fun. I wanted to give this book a higher rating because of the content. I kind of gave it a mid rating. And I always try to guess who is the murderer, and I was wrong. I like the pacing of this because I feel like I'm on a bike ride. So it's a fun series, but I can understand maybe some people having reservations about some of the story. I gave all of them pretty much an average rating, but this one I did enjoy the story a little bit more, but very fun for the most part. Yes. And the last book that I'm going to talk about today is My Greatest Save. Now, this I have for two things. I have this for the Ketchup-a-thon. At the beginning of this, we have Sweet or Savory. And this one I did a book that challenges me, and I'm going to say why. This was on my to-read list the longest of any book. There were other books that I had already read this year that were on there longer, so I've been getting through that, and this one was one of the next ones. So this was like a top book that I needed to read. It is an Olympian book, but it is a challenge because it has topics that I don't really read much about, including soccer. I know that the World Cup just happened for the guys, and this is a very well-known soccer player champion. She won 2 Olympics, and she was the first person that was Black to be on a soccer team for women, at least in the US. So that's why I wanted to read this, because I love to read Olympic stories, but I had a hard time reading this story. However, this also is for my summertime reading, and this fills up my bingo. Yay, bingo! But I won't win anything because the gift card I'm giving away is for you guys. But I filled it up. You have until September 5th to do this, guys. And people have been showing me their progress. I've had multiple people show me. And I'm really glad people are doing this, so thank you for that. This is one of those books that after I finished it, I had to look up just things about the person that I read about. And I found out, I thought it was Brianna, her name, but it's Brianna. So I thought that was interesting that it's like Bri, not Brie. Also, there's portions of this book that are set in my state only 10 minutes from me. So I was like, whoa, I know exactly where that is. So that was really awkward for me to be like, oh. And the reason why I say awkward because of what's happening in that area, what she talks about. So let me tell you, Brianna Scurry, she was born in Texas, I believe. And I think at some point her family moved to Minnesota. She was always the only Black girl and she felt it. This book, she talks a lot about racism and what she went through. And then on top of that, she is a lesbian. And so what it looked like for her to be both those things. I was just trying to understand her through the lens of Christ and for them to know him. And she was raised in a Christian home. And so it is brought up and what it felt like for her situation and going to church. So she talks about those things. And then there was like one crazy racist billboard that she saw at one point and it actually had the N-word in it. And she says that word twice. That's the only swearing in this whole thing that I can remember. There might have been a small B word as well, and then that would be it. So she says that she believes in God or a higher being. She often goes to gurus and she would talk about how what they say that helped her. You could see that longing and that desire she has. And with her story, there's a lot she goes through that is very painful, especially a certain injury that she had at one point, and she's at her lowest low. It was very sad to read. So her story was pretty interesting, but it wasn't told that great. Like, I felt it was okay. For content, she is married to another woman and she brings that up multiple times. She talks about romances she had with women with no details. The only detail she talks about is kissing. There is one part that she brings up where there is kind of like what I mentioned with the Cyclist book, where there is a scene of nudity. I don't know how to explain that it's not sexual. It's more like why type of thing, but she didn't want to do what, anyway, I don't know how to describe it, but there is that content. There is talk about drinking and being drunk, suicidal issues and suicide in general, or even possible suicide that was really a murder covered up. And she also talks about brutality against Black people, like George Floyd is brought up, described a little bit. I think that a lot of this, what she had to say was good just so I can understand her if I were to meet her. I don't know, she still lives like 10 minutes from me, but if I were to run into her, just to treat her with respect and just hear her story. So that's what I felt like I was doing while reading this. So it was an okay book. It wasn't the most amazing. I went into this completely blind, but man, she talks a lot about soccer in this book that went over my head. A lot of soccer talk. I think that was probably part of why my rating was a bit lower. It's just too much. Like, I don't need to know every play-by-play. Well, you want me to hold you? All right, well, this guy has been next to me the whole time. It was a bit of a challenge to have them in here with me because usually someone watches him. You want to say goodbye to everyone? Bye. We're also potty training right now, so pray for me.